Theo Bridges was 40 years old, and until that Tuesday morning, he believed his marriage was simply tired, not broken. He'd built Bridges Construction and Renovation from nothing. One truck, one toolbox, 12 years of 16-hour days. He never once suspected his wife, Adaora, who handled the company's books, was capable of betrayal. Then his son handed him a cracked old phone to fix, and the messages that synced to his tablet stopped his hand mid-air. 8 months of texts, his business partner's name. Words like, "Once we're free of him." Theo read every single one, twice, and said nothing. He didn't yell, he didn't call her. He made one phone call, to a locksmith. The next morning, Adaora pulled into the driveway in last night's clothes, hair undone, makeup smudged, phone dead from hours of lying somewhere else. Her key wouldn't turn, and standing in the doorway, perfectly calm, coffee in hand, Theo had already decided exactly what came next. She had no idea it had already begun. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The sky over Charlotte was still dark purple when Theo Bridges climbed out of his truck. It was 5:47 a.m. The job site smelled like wet dirt and fresh lumber. A half-built commercial addition rose out of the ground ahead of him. Steel framing, concrete footings, 2 porta-potties by the fence. His crew was already there. Hard hats, steel-toed boots, hot coffee and thermoses. He liked this part. The quiet before the noise. "Morning, boss." That was Darnell, his site foreman, waving from beside a folding table where the blueprints were spread open and held down by a cracked level and a spare bolt. Theo nodded and walked over. He didn't rush. He never rushed. He set his own coffee down and studied the plans. His eyes moved slow and careful across every line. The load-bearing walls, the electrical chase, the placement of the rear exit. He'd read these blueprints 4 times already. He read them again anyway. They shifted the window framing 6 inches east on this elevation, Theo said. His voice was calm, matter of fact. He tapped the paper with one finger. "That puts it outside spec. Fix it before the inspector gets here Thursday." Darnell leaned in, looked, and exhaled. Yeah, you're right. I'll get Marcus on it first thing." Theo picked up his coffee. Good. That was how he worked. No yelling, no drama, just precision, just results. He'd built Bridges Construction and Renovation from nothing. Literally nothing. 12 years ago, he was one man with a pickup truck, a used nail gun, and a reputation for showing up on time. Now he had 22 employees, a fleet of 4 trucks, and a contract portfolio that made other Charlotte contractors quietly jealous. Every brick of it came from the same source, patience and precision, applied every single day. He spent the morning walking the site, asking questions, checking measurements, catching 2 small errors before they became expensive ones. By noon, the crew was moving steady, and Theo drove back to the office. He got home at 6:30 that evening. The house was a 4-bedroom Craftsman in a quiet neighborhood in Steel Creek. Theo had picked the lot himself, drawn the renovation plan himself, spent 3 weekends pulling crown molding in the living room when the subcontractor he hired botched the first install. Every corner of that house had his fingerprints on it. He pushed through the front door and heard Adaora's voice down the hall, quick and low, like she was wrapping something up fast. When he turned the corner into the kitchen, she was already standing at the counter with her phone face down beside the stove, stirring a pot of rice. "Hey," she said, not looking at him. "Hey." He kissed the side of her head. She turned her cheek slightly. Not toward him. Away. He noticed. He always noticed. He just didn't say anything. The perfume hit him as he stepped back. It was new, something with jasmine in it, sharp and expensive. Not the warm vanilla she'd worn for years. He'd never seen the bottle anywhere in the bathroom. Dinner was jerk chicken, rice, and roasted plantains. Adaora had cooked, which surprised him. She'd been skipping dinner 3 nights a week lately. Work dinners, she called them. The company's books don't balance themselves, Theo. The firm's regional reps want FaceTime, Theo. He hadn't pushed. He trusted her with the books the way he trusted Darnell with the site. Because they'd earned it. And because he had no reason not to. Yet. Yusuf was already at the table when Theo sat down. 16 years old, long and lean, with Theo's same careful eyes. He had his phone next to his plate but wasn't looking at it. He was watching his mother. "How was school?" Theo asked him. "Fine." Yusuf picked up his fork. "We're doing a presentation on structural engineering and physics. I used your company as the example." Theo smiled. "Yeah? What did your teacher say?" "Said it was impressive. Said most kids use bridges or skyscrapers." A small pause. "I told her my dad built actual bridges." Adara exhaled through her nose. "Yusuf, your dad builds residential additions and strip mall renovations." She smiled when she said it, but the words had edges on them. "Let's not oversell it." No one said anything for a second. Yusuf looked at his plate. Theo cut a piece of chicken. "Eat your food," he said quietly, to no one in particular. After dinner, Yusuf found him in the garage. Theo was at his workbench, sorting through a bin of outlet plates he'd been meaning to organize for 2 months. Yusuf had something in his hand. A phone with a cracked screen, the glass spiderwebbed from corner to corner. "Mom's old work phone," Yusuf said. "She said it's dead. I was going to watch videos on it, but I can't get it to turn on. Can you fix it?" Theo looked at the phone. An older model. He recognized it. Adaora had switched to a new one about 8 months ago. "I'll take a look," he said. He found a compatible charging cable in the second drawer, plugged the phone in. Then, out of habit, he connected it to his tablet to back up the data before messing with anything. The tablet screen lit up. The sync began. And then the notifications started coming in, dozens of them, cascading down the screen like falling water, all from the same contact name, Preston. Theo's hand stopped in midair. One message sat fully visible in the preview, its timestamp reading 11 months ago, its words perfectly clear. "Once we handle his stake, you won't have to pretend anymore." "We're almost there, baby." Theo sat in the dark for 3 full minutes before he turned the desk lamp on. The home office was small. 1 window. A filing cabinet in the corner, locked. A framed photo of the bridge's construction crew from 2 years ago on the wall. 12 guys in hard hats, squinting into the sun, all of them grinning. Theo was in the center of it. He looked happy. He didn't look at the photo. He sat down in his chair, placed the tablet flat on the desk, and began reading from the beginning. The first message was dated 8 months ago. A Tuesday. "I keep thinking about Saturday. I shouldn't, but I am." That was Adaora. Preston's response came 4 minutes later. "Then don't stop." Theo read it. Then he read it again. He set his jaw and kept scrolling. He didn't rush through them. He read each one the way he read blueprints, carefully, without emotion, looking for the structure underneath, where it started, how it grew, what it was really built on. The flirting came first, a few weeks of it, careful, like 2 people testing ice before they step on it. Then, around the 6th week, the ice held, and they both stepped out onto it together. "I've never felt like this with anyone." Adaora. "You deserve more than what you have." Preston. "I know." Adaora again. Theo's chest tightened. He breathed in slow through his nose and let it out the same way. His face didn't move. His hands stayed flat on the desk. He didn't stand up, didn't pace the floor, didn't go down the hall and pull the bedroom door open. He just kept reading. By the 3rd month of messages, the tone had shifted. It wasn't just heat anymore. It was planning. The word free started showing up the way other people use the word soon, like it was always just around the corner. "After we're free of him, We can actually breathe. Once we're free, you can stop performing. Free by summer. I promise you that. Theo stopped at that one. Summer had been 4 months ago. He noted the date in his head. Then he kept going. The buyout talk started in the 4th month. Preston's messages mostly. Long ones. His partnership agreement has a voluntary transfer clause. If I can get him to feel like the company's more trouble than it's worth, he'll take a buyout just to be done with it. Trust me. I know how he thinks. Theo read that one 3 times. I know how he thinks. Preston Wales, his business partner for 6 years. The man who'd stood up at Theo's 40th birthday dinner 2 years ago and called him one of the best men he'd ever known. The man who knew the square footage of every project Theo had ever bid on, who had a key to this very office, who had borrowed money from Theo twice and paid it back both times so that Theo would never stop trusting him. I know how he thinks. Theo's hand moved just once. His right hand, slowly closing into a fist on the desk. He held it there for a moment. Then he opened it back up and kept scrolling. By midnight, the picture was fully formed. The affair was real, and had been real for 8 months. Adaora believed in it completely. That much was clear. Preston believed in it too, or at least believed in what it was getting him. And Yusuf had no idea. Theo thought about his son asleep down the hall. 16 years old, using his father's company as a school project. Still proud enough to tell his teacher about it. He didn't let himself sit with that thought too long. At 1:47 a.m., he found the message. It was from 6 weeks ago, Adaora to Preston, a Wednesday night. Theo had been at a 2-day estimating conference in Raleigh. He remembered the trip clearly. He'd called home both evenings. She'd answered both times. Said she was tired. Said Yusuf had eaten. Said everything was fine. The consulting payments are still clearing. Checked this morning. Nobody's flagged anything. We're good. Preston's reply came back in under a minute. Of course they're not flagging it. She signed off on it. Why would anyone look twice? Then Adaora. As long as Octavia stays in her lane. Theo read that last line twice. His eyes held it. He sat back in his chair. The lamp made a small yellow circle on the desk. Outside, the neighborhood was completely quiet. No wind, no cars. He reached over and closed the tablet slowly. The way you close a door you don't want to wake anyone with. He sat there in the silence. He didn't move for a long time. Then he picked up his phone. He opened his messages and found Octavia's name. He typed slowly, checking each word before he sent it. I need you at the office tomorrow. 5:30 a.m. Come before anyone else gets there. Don't mention this to anyone. He put the phone down on the desk, and he waited. The office parking lot was empty when Theo pulled in at 5:17 a.m. He sat in his truck for a moment. The building was dark except for the security light above the side entrance, a thin orange glow that made the brick look like old copper. He'd bought this building 4 years ago, paid cash for the down payment. His name was on the door in clean black letters, Bridges Construction and Renovation. He got out of the truck. Octavia's headlights swept the lot 8 minutes later. She parked 2 spots down, stepped out in a navy jacket and flat shoes, a travel mug in one hand and a laptop bag on her shoulder. She didn't look surprised to be there. She didn't look like anything, really, just awake and ready, the way she always was. You look terrible, she said. I'm fine. Okay. She didn't push it. That was one of the things Theo had always respected about Octavia Reyes. She didn't push. He unlocked the side door and held it open. They walked through the dark hallway to the back office, and Theo turned on only the desk lamp, not the overhead lights. I need you to pull a full year of financials, he said. Every outgoing payment, every vendor, every fee. Octavia set her mug down and opened her laptop. Any particular category? All of them. But pay close attention to consulting fees. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. On it, he'd written 4 dates, pulled from memory, from the messages. Cross-reference anything that cleared around these dates. She looked at the paper without picking it up. Then she looked at him. "I'm not going to ask," she said. "Good." She started pulling records. Theo sat in the chair against the wall and watched the window go from black to dark blue to pale gray as morning came in slow. He drank his coffee. He didn't speak. Octavia worked the way she always worked, quiet, focused, mouse clicking in a steady rhythm, the occasional soft tap of her nails on the keyboard. At 8:14 a.m. she stopped clicking. She sat back in her chair. She looked at the screen for a moment, then at Theo. $61,000, she said. Paid out over 11 months to something called Vantage Point Consulting, LLC. She turned the laptop to face him. No website, no listed employees, no verifiable business address. She pointed to the column on the right side of the screen. Every single payment was authorized under Adaora's signature. Theo looked at the screen. He looked at every line. "Labeled as?" he asked. "Consulting fees," Octavia said. She said it flat, with no expression, because she didn't need one. Theo nodded once. He turned the laptop back toward her. There it was, $61,000. His money, from his company, funneled out under his wife's hand to a shell business that didn't exist. And somewhere on the other end of that shell was Preston, Wales, and a plan that had been running for almost a year while Theo shook hands with the man at job sites and trusted him with the company's keys. "Can you document all of it?" Theo asked. "Dates, amounts, authorizations, everything printed and time-stamped." "Already started," Octavia said. He stood up, moved to the window, and looked out at the lot. The sun was up now, low and pale, hitting the hood of his truck. "Thank you, Octavia," he said. "Keep this between us." "You don't have to tell me that," she said. He waited until he was in his truck, alone, before he called Camille. She picked up on the second ring. "It's early." "I know." He paused. "I need to talk to you about something serious. I need you to listen all the way through before you say anything." A brief silence. Then, "I'm listening." He told her everything. The synced messages, the 8 months of texts, Preston's buyout plan, the consulting payments, Vantage Point LLC. He spoke evenly, without rushing. The way he'd read the messages, looking for the structure, laying it out piece by piece. When he finished, Camille was quiet for a moment. "How long have you known?" she asked. "About 30 hours. And you haven't said a word to her?" "No." Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was steady and precise. "Theo, don't confront her. Not yet. Not before we know everything she's touched. You confront her now and she moves money. She destroys records. She gets ahead of you. A beat. You need to let me make some calls first." "That's why I'm calling you," he said. "Okay." He could hear her already shifting into the part of herself that wasn't his sister, the part that was a real estate attorney who had spent 20 years thinking 3 moves ahead. "I'll clear my afternoon. Don't do anything until you hear from me." "Understood," he said. That evening, at 7:43 p.m., Adaora texted him. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." Theo read it. He set the phone down on the kitchen counter. Through the window, the sky was the deep blue just before dark. He picked the phone back up and searched for a locksmith. The locksmith arrived at 5:50 the next morning. He was a quiet man, efficient, done in under 20 minutes. He handed Theo 2 new keys, took his check, and left without asking any questions. The house was still dark. Yusuf was asleep. Theo made coffee and waited. At 9:42 a.m., Adaora's white Audi turned into the driveway. Theo watched from the living room window. She sat in the car for a moment before she got out. He could see her moving, head down, probably checking her phone. Then she stepped out. Yesterday's blouse, wrinkled at the hem. Her hair pulled to one side in a way she'd never chosen on purpose. Mascara dried in faint lines beneath her eyes. She walked to the front door with her keys out. She found the right one by habit, pressed it into the lock, and turned it. Nothing. She tried again, pushed slightly on the door while she turned. Nothing. He opened the door before she could knock. He was clean, showered, dressed, coffee mug in hand. He looked at her the way you look at a stranger who's come to the wrong address. "Your things are in the garage," he said. His voice was level, quiet, packed and boxed. "You have 15 minutes to load what you need. After that, I'll be calling the police and reporting a trespasser." Adaora stood on the porch and stared at him. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her keys were still in her hand, pressed against her palm. She looked down at them, then back at Theo, like she was waiting for the joke to land. "Theo, garage," he said. He stepped back and began to close the door. Her hand shot out and caught the frame. "Are you serious right now? You changed the locks?" Her voice climbed fast, disbelief folding into anger. "You can't just… This is my house." "Your bags are packed," he said again. 15 minutes. She searched his face for something. Hurt, heat, anything she could work with. There was nothing there to grab onto. She let go of the door frame. She loaded 3 boxes and a rolling suitcase into the Audi in 11 minutes. She did it in silence, her jaw tight, her movements sharp and quick. Theo stayed inside. He didn't watch from the window. He sat at the kitchen table and drank his coffee and listened to the side garage door open and close. He heard the Audi back out of the driveway. He heard it leave. Then it was just the house. Quiet. The refrigerator hum. The low tick of the wall clock in the hallway. He finished his coffee. She checked into the Marriott off Park Road. A corner room on the 4th floor. She always needed a corner room. She sat on the edge of the bed and charged her phone. And before the screen even hit 10%, she was already calling Preston. She told him what happened. Theo changed the locks. The bags were packed. He did it cold. No yelling, no crying. Just stood there in his clean shirt with his coffee, like he was telling her a meeting was canceled. Preston told her to relax. "It's a reaction," he said. "Men do this. He's hurt. Give him 2 days, and he'll be calling you, asking you to come home." She was quiet for a moment. "You didn't see his face," she said. "Adaora." Preston's voice was smooth, patient, the tone he used when he thought she was overcomplicating something. "He doesn't know anything beyond the affair. He found out his wife was cheating on him. That's it. He's angry and embarrassed. Let him sit with it. He'll soften." She lay back on the hotel pillow and looked at the ceiling. 2 days, she said. 2 days, he said. She almost believed him. She called Theo the next morning. He let it ring through to voicemail. She texted him an hour later. "We need to talk. I deserve a chance to explain." He replied 4 hours after that. One line, "Coffee shop on Selwyn. Tomorrow at 11. She read it and felt something loosen in her chest. He was talking. That was good. That was something she could work with. The coffee shop was small, wood floors, a chalkboard menu above the counter. Theo was already there when she walked in, sitting at a corner table with a plain black coffee and his phone face down beside it. He looked rested. That bothered her more than she expected. She sat across from him and set her bag on the chair beside her. She'd dressed carefully. Simple. Tasteful. The kind of thing that said, "I'm not dramatic. I'm just a woman in pain." Her hands were folded on the table when she started talking. "I know I hurt you," she said. Her voice was soft, measured. "And I'm not here to make excuses." A pause. I felt invisible, Theo. For years. You were always at the office, always at a job site, and I was just there, maintaining everything, handling everything, and it was like you didn't even see me anymore." Theo looked at her. He didn't nod. He didn't shift in his seat. He just looked at her with an expression that gave her absolutely nothing. "I'm not saying what I did was right," she continued. "I'm saying I need you to understand why it happened." She leaned forward slightly. Yusuf needs his family together. He needs stability, Theo. Let me come home. We can figure out the rest from there. The table was small enough that she could have reached across and touched his hand. She didn't, but she held the option in the air, visible, waiting. Theo picked up his coffee. He took a slow sip. He set it back down. I need some time, he said. Something in her chest settled. Not relief, exactly. More like the first small grip of traction under a slipping tire. He needed time. He wasn't closed off. He was still processing. Still reachable. That was a door left open, and Adaora had spent her whole life knowing how to walk through open doors. Of course, she said gently. Take whatever you need. He was still in the parking lot when his phone rang. Camille didn't bother with a greeting. I ran a title search on the Eastway rental property, she said. The one you bought with Dad's money. Theo's hand tightened on the steering wheel. Tell me, he said. Adaora's name is on the deed, Camille said. 50% ownership, added 2 years ago. A pause, short and heavy. Theo, that's your signature on the transfer document, except you didn't sign it. He stared through the windshield at the parking lot. How long ago? He asked, though he already knew. 2 years, Camille said. This started long before Preston. The call came on a Wednesday. Preston's number lit up Theo's screen at 10:47 in the morning. Theo watched it ring for 3 full seconds before he answered. Hey! Preston's voice was warm, easy, like they were friends calling to grab lunch. You got some time today? I think we should sit down. Just the two of us. Sure, Theo said. Come by the office. Perfect. A brief pause. How are you holding up, man? Seriously. Theo looked out the window of his office at the parking lot below. A delivery truck was backing in slowly, its reverse alarm beeping in a steady rhythm. Getting through it, Theo said. That's all you can do, Preston said. That's all you can do. He arrived at 2 o'clock in a charcoal blazer, no tie, shoes that cost more than most of Theo's crew made in a day. He shook Theo's hand at the door with both of his, the kind of handshake that was more grip than greeting. Theo had already set his phone on the desk before Preston walked in. Screen down. Voice memo running. Legal in North Carolina. One party. All Theo needed was himself. They sat. Preston took the chair across from Theo's desk and leaned back in it like it was his own furniture. He looked around the office, the framed blueprints on the wall, the project photos, the small shelf of industry awards, and nodded slowly, like he was appraising something he was about to buy. You built something real here, Preston said. I mean that. Theo folded his hands on the desk. What's on your mind, Preston? Preston let out a long breath through his nose. He brought his hands together, elbows on the armrests, fingertips touching. The posture of a man about to be reasonable at you. I'm going to be straight with you, he said, because that's what you deserve right now. A pause, just long enough to feel generous. The situation with you and Adaora, people are going to find out. Word travels, clients talk, investors talk, and when they hear that the man running this company is going through a personal meltdown, I'm not in a meltdown, Theo said, quiet, flat. Preston held up one hand. I know that. But perception is everything in this business, and you know that better than anyone. He leaned forward slightly. I'm trying to protect what we built here. I'm talking about getting ahead of it, a clean transition. You sell me your stake. I give you a fair number. You walk with your money, your reputation intact, and you get the space to deal with everything you're dealing with. No drama. No ugly headlines. Theo looked at him. Preston's eyes were patient, confident. The eyes of a man who had already decided how this conversation ended. What kind of number are we talking? Theo asked. He kept his voice low, like a man too tired to negotiate hard. Preston named a figure. It was about 40 cents on the dollar. Theo didn't react. He just looked at the desk for a moment. The way a man looks when he's running out of road. That's lower than I expected, Theo said slowly. It's fair given the circumstances, Preston said. And the circumstances could get a lot messier if this drags out. He said it gently, the way someone says a threat when they want it to sound like a favor. Theo nodded, slow, tired. I need a little time to think it over, he said. This is a lot to sit with all at once. Preston stood and buttoned his blazer. He smiled, a full, satisfied smile, the kind that didn't bother hiding itself. Take a few days, he said. But don't wait too long, Theo. I'd hate for this to get complicated. He shook Theo's hand again on the way out. Same two-handed grip, same warmth. Theo walked him to the door, waited until the charcoal blazer disappeared into the parking lot, then went back to his desk and stopped the recording. He played back the last 30 seconds. Preston's voice filled the room, smooth and clear. I'd hate for this to get complicated. Theo saved the file, emailed it to himself, then forwarded it to Camille. Octavia called just after 7 that evening, while Theo was eating dinner at the kitchen table with Yusuf. He stepped outside to the back porch to take it. I traced where the 61,000 went, she said. No preamble. That was Octavia. It was a down payment. A condo over in Noda. Theo was still. The neighborhood crickets were loud in the yard. The deed is under her maiden name, Octavia continued. Adiora Mensa. I pulled the purchase date. A short pause. Theo, this closed 14 months ago. He did the math without meaning to. 14 months ago, Adaora had been sitting across from him at this same table, helping Yusuf with a history project. 14 months ago, she had kissed him goodnight. You still there? Octavia asked. Yeah, he said. I'm here. This wasn't something that just happened, she said carefully. This was planned. I know, Theo said. He thanked her. He ended the call. He stood on the back porch for a long moment, the night air settling around him, and said nothing at all. Camille's office was on the 4th floor of a building in uptown Charlotte. Clean lines, tall windows, the kind of space that said serious work happens here without needing to say it out loud. Theo arrived at 8 in the morning with a manila folder, a flash drive, and a phone. He laid everything on her conference table in a straight line, like tools before a job. Camille stood across from him and looked it over. She was 4 years older than Theo, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of stillness that came from spending 20 years in courtrooms. She didn't rush. She picked up each item, read it, set it down. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she pulled out her chair and sat down. Okay, she said. Tell me everything in order. So he did. The texts, the Shell LLC, the consulting fees with Adaora's signature at the bottom, the forged deed on the rental property their father's money had bought, the condo in Noda under her maiden name, purchased 14 months ago, and Preston, the meeting, the offer, the threat wrapped in a smile. Camille listened without interrupting. She made notes on a yellow legal pad in small, tight handwriting. When he finished, she tapped her pen against the table twice. He really offered you 40 cents on the dollar, she said. He did. She shook her head, just slightly. That man did not read this partnership agreement. She reached across the table and pulled the document from the folder. She had already flagged a page with a yellow tab. She turned it to face Theo and pointed to a paragraph near the bottom of page 11. The language wasn't complicated once Camille broke it down. If either partner was found to have committed a breach of fiduciary duty, misuse of company funds, undisclosed conflicts of interest, financial self-dealing, the other partner had the right to force a buyout. The price wasn't negotiable. It was set by a formula in the agreement itself, and it came out to a fraction of market value. Preston had signed this document 9 years ago. He built you the exit himself, Camille said. Theo looked at the paragraph. Can we use what Octavia found to prove the breach? The Shell LLC payments authorized under her signature, the condo purchase funded by those payments, and his recorded statement pressuring you to sell under threat. Camille set down her pen. Yes, we can prove it. They spent the next 3 hours working. Camille drafted the formal divorce petition, and they went through it section by section. Theo read every line. The petition cited financial misconduct specifically, the $61,000 in misappropriated funds, the fraudulent transfer of company money, and the forged property deed. It named dollar amounts. It named dates. It was not a filing that left room for interpretation. While Camille finished the language, Theo called the title company that held the record on the rental property. He explained what they had. Camille got on the phone for 10 minutes and walked them through the forgery evidence. By noon, the property was frozen. No transfers, no sales, no changes, pending a full fraud investigation. Then they moved to the company accounts. Camille walked Theo through the clauses in the original operating agreement that gave the majority partner the right to consolidate financial oversight in the event of a formal dispute. Theo had never needed to use those clauses before. He had trusted the people around him. He wouldn't be making that mistake again. By mid-afternoon, the divorce papers had been filed with the courthouse. The title company had confirmed in writing that the property was frozen. Theo sat back in his chair for the first time all day and let out a slow breath. Camille took her glasses off and set them on the table. "Here's what I want you to think about," she said. "You could serve both of them today. Adaora gets the divorce papers. Preston gets the formal breach notice. It's all legal. It's all clean." She paused. "But they'll lawyer up the moment the papers hit their hands. The story gets fragmented. They each manage their own damage separately." Theo watched her. "You put them both in the same room first," she said. "Before either of them knows what's coming. You lay it all out, every piece of evidence, in sequence, with your outside counsel present and Octavia there as a witness. They have nowhere to run. They can't coordinate a story they didn't see coming." "1 meeting," Theo said. "1 meeting," she nodded. "Then you hand them the papers on the way out the door." Theo thought about it for exactly 4 seconds. "I'll book the conference room," he said. He stepped into the hallway and called Octavia. She picked up on the second ring. "I need the conference room Monday morning, 8:30. You, me, and the outside counsel. I'll set it up. And Octavia." He kept his voice even. "Bring every document. Already have them. I never stopped pulling." He thanked her and ended the call. Then he walked back into Camille's office, sat down, and they went over the Monday agenda, line by line, piece by piece, until every detail was exactly where it needed to be. The basketball game was at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Theo sat in the middle of the bleachers at the rec center, a cup of coffee going cold in his hand, watching Yusuf run back and forth across the court. The gym smelled like rubber and floor wax. Parents cheered around him. The scoreboard buzzed. He clapped when Yusuf made a drive to the basket. He kept his face calm. He had been keeping his face calm for 6 weeks now, and he had gotten very good at it. Adaora was there too, sitting 3 rows below him with her coat still buttoned. She had arrived late, slipping in during the second quarter. She'd turned once and given Theo a small, careful smile, the kind that said we're still reasonable people, and he had nodded back without expression. She was reading him wrong. He could see it. The way she sat a little looser than she should have. The way she had stopped gripping her phone like a life raft. 6 weeks ago, she'd been locked out of her own house. But Theo hadn't yelled. He hadn't threatened. He hadn't done anything dramatic. And somehow, in Adaora's mind, that quiet had turned into something she could use. She had mistaken his patience for hesitation. At halftime, the boys jogged off the court. Yusuf grabbed his bag near the bench and headed through the side door toward the water station in the hallway outside. Theo watched Adaora stand up. She pulled out her phone, glanced at the screen, and walked toward the exit. the same direction Yusuf had gone, though she didn't seem to notice that. Theo didn't find out what happened until that night. Yusuf came into the kitchen around 9, after dinner had been cleared and the house had gone quiet. He stood in the doorway for a moment, still in his practice clothes, and looked at Theo. "Dad?" His voice was low. "Can I talk to you?" "Yeah." Theo set down his glass. "Come sit." Yusuf pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. He put both hands on the table. He was quiet for a moment, looking at his knuckles, and Theo waited. "At the game," Yusuf said, "when I went out to get water. Mom was in the hallway. She didn't see me." Theo stayed still. "She was on the phone." Yusuf looked up. "She said—" He stopped, pressed his lips together like he was deciding whether to keep going. Then he did. "She told whoever she was talking to that her and Preston are almost free of you, that the divorce was going to go in her favor." He paused. "She said it like it was funny." The word funny landed hard. Theo kept his voice even. "What did you do?" "Nothing. I got my water and I walked back in." Yusuf shook his head slowly. "I didn't want her to know I heard." Theo nodded. "That was the right call." "Dad." Yusuf's jaw tightened. He was 16, but right then he looked older. Not in a good way. "Is she going to be okay? I mean—" He stopped. "Is she going to be okay, or is she going to lose everything?" Theo looked at his son for a long moment. "The truth is going to come out Monday," he said carefully. "All of it. And whatever happens after that, it's because of choices she made. Not yours. Not mine." Yusuf nodded slowly. He didn't ask for more than that. He sat there for another minute, then pushed back his chair and stood up. "Okay," he said. Then, quieter. "I'm glad you know what you're doing." He went upstairs. Theo listened to his footsteps on the stairs, then the sound of a door closing gently above him. He sat at the kitchen table alone and let the silence settle. Late Sunday night, Theo moved to his desk. The house was dark except for the lamp in his office. He opened the manila folder and started from the beginning, the same way he did on a job site, checking every measurement before a single nail went in. The texts first, 8 months of them, printed and sorted by date, with the most critical exchanges flagged in yellow. Then the financial records, Octavia's spreadsheet, clean and precise, each of the 31 transactions listed with dates, amounts, and the LLC name printed in a column on the right. Then the forged deed, with the signature comparison Camille had obtained from a certified examiner. Then the condo paperwork, purchased 14 months ago under Adaora's maiden name. Then the recording of Preston's voice, low and confident, offering 40 cents on the dollar and calling it a kindness. He went through each piece slowly. He didn't rush. When he was done, he closed the folder and set it beside his keyboard. His phone buzzed. A text from Camille. "Everything filed. Documents are ready. See you Monday." He set the phone down and opened his laptop. He pulled up the calendar and created a new meeting invitation. He typed the title, Partnership Restructuring Discussion, and set the time for 9 a.m. He added the conference room. He typed in 2 names, Adaora Bridges, Preston Wales. He hit send. Then he closed the laptop, turned off the lamp, and went to bed. The conference room at Bridges Construction and Renovation had a long rectangular table, 6 chairs, and a window that faced the parking lot. It smelled like coffee and dry erase markers. A whiteboard on the far wall still had a site schedule written on it from last Thursday. Theo had asked Octavia to arrive at 8:30. She was there at 8:15. The company's outside counsel, a compact man named Gerald Holt, arrived right behind her. He set his briefcase on the table, took the chair to Octavia's left, and opened his notepad without a word. Theo stood near the window and watched the parking lot. Preston came first. He pulled in at 8:58 in his silver BMW, and he walked across the lot the way he always did. Chin up, shoulders loose, like he owned the ground under his feet. He pushed through the front door, nodded at the receptionist, and strolled into the conference room. He saw Octavia. He saw Gerald Holt. Something shifted in his face, just slightly, a small tightening around the eyes, but he recovered fast. "Theo," he said it with a smile. "Didn't know this was going to be a big production." Theo nodded toward the chair at the end of the table. "Sit down, Preston." Preston sat. He put his phone on the table and leaned back like a man who hadn't done anything wrong. Adora arrived 3 minutes later. She walked in wearing a cream blazer, her hair pulled back. She had dressed carefully. She looked like someone walking into a conversation she had already won. Then she saw Octavia. Then Gerald Holt. Then the manila folder sitting in front of Theo's chair. Her pace slowed, just a half step, before she kept going and took the chair across from Preston. She set her purse on the table. She folded her hands. "Good morning," she said, to no one in particular. No one answered. Theo sat down. He placed one hand flat on top of the manila folder. The room was quiet enough to hear the parking lot outside. "I'm going to go through some things," he said. "I'm going to ask that no one interrupt until I'm finished." Preston opened his mouth. "Preston," Theo said, without looking at him. "Not yet." Preston closed his mouth. Theo opened the folder. He started with the texts. He didn't read them aloud. He slid the printed pages across the table, face up, and let them sit there. 8 months of messages between Adaora and Preston. Dates highlighted. Key phrases underlined in yellow. "Once we're free of him. After the buyout. Don't worry about Theo." Adaora's eyes dropped to the pages and stayed there. "The affair started 11 months ago," Theo said. His voice was level. "I'm not here to argue about that. I'm here because the affair wasn't the only thing happening." He pulled the second document from the folder, the forged deed. 2 years ago, a quitclaim deed was filed on the Hartwell Road rental property, the property I purchased with my father's inheritance. That deed added a second owner. He set the signature comparison beside it. "A certified examiner has confirmed that signature is not mine." The color in Adaora's face changed, not all at once, slowly, like something draining. Preston leaned forward to look at the documents. His expression had gone flat. Third document, Octavia's spreadsheet. $61,000, Theo said. Paid in 31 separate transactions over the last 14 months, all authorized under Adaora's signature, all routed to a shell LLC that does not perform any consulting services because it doesn't exist as a real business. Preston sat back. "Now wait a minute. I said not yet." Theo's voice didn't rise. It got quieter. Preston stopped. Fourth document. The condo paperwork. 14 months ago, Theo said, a condo was purchased in Noda. The down payment came from the Shell LLC account. He set the property record on top of the pile. It's registered under Adaora's maiden name. That purchase predates my discovery of any of this by more than a year. He looked up for the first time and looked directly at Preston. This wasn't an affair that got complicated. This was a plan. Preston's face went hard. He leaned forward and jabbed a finger at the table. "You can't walk in here with a bunch of documents and try to... This is going to cost you. I have my own lawyers, Theo, and I will bury you in litigation." Theo reached into the folder and placed a small digital recorder on the table. He pressed play. Preston's own voice filled the room, smooth and confident from 5 days ago. "Sell me the steak now. Before this gets ugly in front of your clients. You're not stable right now, Theo. People can see that. 40 cents on the dollar is a gift, and you know it." He stopped the recording. "North Carolina is a one-party consent state," Gerald Holt said, quietly, without looking up from his notepad. Theo slid the final document across the table. The partnership agreement, open to page 9, a single paragraph highlighted in yellow. "Fiduciary breach triggers a forced buyout," he said. "The clause is right there. You've had a copy of this agreement for 4 years, Preston." The room was very quiet. Preston stared at the recorder. His jaw was tight. The confident set of his shoulders had collapsed into something smaller, something rigid and cornered. Adaora hadn't spoken in several minutes. She was looking at the pile of documents on the table. The texts, the deed, the spreadsheet, the condo paperwork. All of it stacked and labeled and organized, each piece fitting the next like a wall going up around her. She picked up the printed page with the signature comparison. She set it down. She picked it up again. And then Theo watched the moment happen. He could see it in her face, the exact second she stopped calculating and started understanding. The locks, not a tantrum, not heartbreak boiling over. The locks had been first. Before the folder. Before Gerald Holt. Before any of this. The morning she stood on the porch in last night's clothes and couldn't get inside her own house. That had not been the end of something. That had been the beginning. 6 weeks ago. She had spent 6 weeks thinking she had time. Thinking she was maneuvering, adjusting, managing the situation. For Yusuf's sake. I just need time. He'll come around. And the whole time every door had been closing behind her, quietly, one at a time, while Theo said nothing and showed nothing. Her mouth opened. Theo. He closed the folder. He stood up. Everything from this point forward goes through lawyers. He picked up the folder. He looked at them both, just once, without anger, without satisfaction. Just a man who had finished a job. Gerald will be in touch. He walked to the door. He opened it. He walked out. Behind him, the conference room stayed silent. 2 people sat at a long table surrounded by documents they couldn't undo, with Octavia across from them, patient and still, and Gerald Holt clicking his pen. The door swung shut on its own. The first domino fell on a Wednesday. Preston's attorney called Gerald Holt that morning, and by noon, the paperwork was drafted. The fiduciary breach clause in the partnership agreement was airtight. Preston had 4 years to read it, and never had. That was his problem now. He sold his 30% stake back to Theo at 41 cents on the dollar. Theo signed the buyout papers at Camille's office. He used a pen his father had left him. A plain black ballpoint, nothing special, just one of those things a man keeps. He signed his name the same way he always did. Small, even letters, no flourish. Bridges, construction, and renovation was his. All of it. For the first time in 4 years. He capped the pen and put it back in his shirt pocket. That same afternoon, Gerald Holt submitted the formal complaint to the North Carolina State Licensing Board for General Contractors. The filing detailed Preston's role in authorizing payments to a Shell LLC, his recorded threat to manufacture a narrative of instability to manipulate a business transaction, and his breach of the fiduciary duties outlined in the partnership agreement. The board opened an investigation within the week. Preston's standing in the industry, the smooth introductions at client dinners, the handshakes at trade association events, the way he could walk into any room in Charlotte and know somebody. All of it began to unravel quietly, the way reputations do when the right people find out the right things. No explosion, just a slow withdrawal of trust, one contact at a time. Adaora's situation moved on a different track, slower, more deliberate. The insurance company's fraud division received Octavia's documentation on a Thursday. $61,000, 31 transactions, 14 months. Every figure sourced, every signature verified. The complaint was formal and complete, the kind of filing that doesn't get set aside. The investigator called Adaora's attorney the following Monday. Restitution proceedings began before the month was out. The full $61,000, mandatory, non-negotiable. The rental property took slightly longer, but the outcome was the same. The title company's investigation confirmed the forgery. The quitclaim deed was voided by court order. The Hartwell Road property reverted to Theo's name alone. His father's money, his father's investment, his inheritance, as it had always legally been. Adaora lost the house she'd spent 2 years quietly claiming as hers. The condo in Noda sat in legal limbo for another 3 weeks before her attorney advised her to liquidate it to help cover the restitution amount. Preston contributed nothing. His own legal exposure made generosity an impossibility he didn't have the character for anyway. The divorce finalized on a Friday morning. It was a gray day, overcast and cool, the kind of November morning where the light never fully arrives. Theo sat at a table in a small conference room at Camille's firm, Adaora across from him with her attorney beside her. She looked tired. The careful presentation she'd walked into the Monday meeting with, the cream blazer, the folded hands, the performance of composure, was gone. She sat with her shoulders slightly forward and her eyes on the table, and she didn't try to make it into anything more than what it was. Theo had the home. He had the company. He had his father's property back. The divorce decree gave Adaora supervised visitation with Yusuf, structured and scheduled, pending a full custody evaluation. It was the court's language, not Theo's, though Theo had provided the court with everything it needed to arrive there. Adaora looked up once, near the end, when the last page was being signed. She looked at Theo the way a person looks when they're deciding whether to say something, whether there's anything left to say that might land differently this time. Theo signed his name on the final line. He slid the pen to her side of the table without meeting her eyes. Not cold, not cruel, simply done. She signed. Her attorney gathered the copies. Camille gathered Theo's. The room cleared in under 4 minutes. Theo didn't say goodbye. He didn't say anything. He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair, nodded to Camille in the hallway, and walked out into the gray morning. That evening, Theo came home to the sound of the television in the living room and the smell of something warm. Yusuf had started a pot of rice and was standing at the stove looking uncertain about it. "I think I put in too much water," Yusuf said. Theo set his keys on the counter and looked into the pot. "Yeah, little bit. Is it salvageable?" "We'll see." He stood next to his son and adjusted the heat. Yusuf leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching the pot like it owed him something. Theo bumped his shoulder once, lightly, and Yusuf didn't move away. They ate at the kitchen table 20 minutes later. Rice that had turned out acceptable. Leftover chicken Theo had reheated. 2 glasses of water. The house was quiet. Not an empty quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a long period of noise, when the air finally settles, and you realize you can breathe again. Theo ate. Yusuf ate. Outside, the neighborhood went about its evening. Neither of them needed to say anything about it. They just sat there together in their home, at their table, and ate their dinner. The banner had been Octavia's idea. It stretched across the front of the company parking lot, between 2 orange cones, white vinyl with dark blue letters. Bridges built right. Municipal Contract Celebration. It wasn't fancy. The corners were zip-tied to a chain-link fence on one end and a folding table leg on the other. But it was straight, and it was visible from the street. And every time a car slowed down to read it, Theo felt something warm move through his chest. He was standing at the grill. Yusuf was beside him, holding tongs like he'd been doing this his whole life, which he had not. He'd burned the first 2 sausages and flipped a chicken thigh directly onto the concrete, and he was now very focused on not making it 3. "Stop checking it every 30 seconds, Theo said. "I'm not checking it. I'm monitoring it. Same thing." "It is not the same thing." Theo reached over and adjusted the tongs in Yusuf's grip without asking. Yusuf let him. A year ago, that small gesture might have felt like correction. Now it just felt like his dad showing him something. Around them, the parking lot was full of noise and movement. Folding tables draped with plastic covers held trays of food that crew members' wives and mothers had brought. Cornbread, potato salad, macaroni, a jug of sweet tea that kept getting emptied and refilled. Marcus from the framing crew, had a portable speaker going. Someone's kids were running between the trucks. The sky above Charlotte was going orange at the edges, the kind of October evening that didn't know it was supposed to be cold yet. Bridges Built Right had secured the Mecklenburg County infrastructure contract 6 weeks earlier. 42 months of work. Schools, recreation centers, a stretch of public roadway. The biggest single contract Theo had ever signed his name to. Octavia had cried exactly once in her office. With the door closed, she thought nobody knew. Theo knew. She was across the parking lot now, working 3 conversations at once. Laughing with 2 crew wives, answering something on her phone, and keeping an eye on the food table with the efficiency of someone who had never fully turned off. She wore a blue polo with the new company logo on the chest. Full partner. Her name was on the LLC document, on the office door, and on the letterhead. It was where it belonged. Theo watched her for a moment and felt the particular satisfaction of a thing done right. "Dad," he looked at Yusuf. "It's done." The chicken thigh was golden brown, grill marks clean across the top. Theo nodded once. "Good. Plate it." Yusuf moved it over with more confidence than he'd had an hour ago, and Theo let him do it himself. The woman's name was Diane. She was a landscape architect. She'd come through a client referral 3 months back. Theo had done a commercial renovation, and her firm had handled the exterior work on the same property. They'd met at the final walkthrough and talked long enough after everyone else left that it stopped being about the building. She was here tonight because Theo had mentioned the cookout casually, the way you mention something when you want someone to come, but don't want to make it a whole thing. She was standing near the drink table, talking to one of the project managers, and she looked comfortable. Not performing comfort. Actually at ease. She had the kind of laugh that came out fully, not carefully. She caught his eye once across the parking lot. She smiled. He smiled back. He looked back at the grill. He was in no hurry. For the first time in longer than he could remember, there was nowhere he needed to be except exactly where he was. Across town, Adaora turned her car onto Sycamore Ridge Drive. Out of habit, more than intention. She told herself she was cutting through to avoid the light on Providence. She told herself that every time. She slowed without meaning to. The house had been repainted. A deep charcoal gray now, instead of the warm beige she'd chosen 11 years ago. New landscaping along the front walk. Boxwoods, something low and deliberate. The porch lights were on, warm amber against the evening. Through the front window, she could see the kitchen light. 2 figures moving inside, and then she heard it, faint through her closed car window. Or maybe she just felt it. Laughter. Real laughter. Theo and Yusuf, moving around their kitchen the way people do when they're comfortable in a space, when the space belongs to them. She sat at the curb for a moment. The engine ran. The porch lights glowed. Then she drove away. The office was quiet by 9. Theo did his walkthrough alone the way he always did. Lights off in each room, door checked, thermostat set. His boots were quiet on the concrete floor. The new logo was on the wall near the entrance, mounted on brushed steel. Bridges Built Right. He stood in front of it for a moment. Not long. He locked the front door, keys in hand, walked to his truck in the empty lot, the October air cool and clean around him. He got in, started the engine, and pulled out onto the road toward home. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.